Hello, future residents of the United States. Today we are going to talk about something very important, and this is how to rent in the US and rental agreements. Obviously, this is very important because you need a place to live. Not only that, if you don't do it correctly and you're late on payments, it can affect your credit score and you can end up paying a lot in fees. If you don't know who I am, I work for an international teacher recruitment company. So I have helped many people move to the US, and I really have seen it all throughout all the years I have been doing this. And now I am sharing some of this information with you. So whether you are a teacher moving to the US or not, if you just want some more information, you're in the right place. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so the first thing you need to know about renting in the US is who are you going to rent from? So typically here is how that works. So you have a private landlord, a big corporation, or, and this in my opinion would be best case scenario, is if you know somebody in the US already in the area that you're moving to, or maybe you're using an agency like what I do for work. We can try to match you up with a roommate. That is always the best way to go, in my opinion, because the rent that you would pay is cheaper because you're splitting it with someone else. You can stay there for a while until you get a lay of the land, and then you can move out on your own, and you have somebody there to kind of guide you and help you through it. And I understand not everybody has this luxury, but again, if you do, I would definitely take advantage of that. So let's say you are renting from a landlord. So generally, this is going to be someone local. Typically, that's how it is, but not necessarily. Again, everything can change. This is just how it generally works. Maybe that person has a duplex and they live in one half, they rent out the other half. Maybe they have a whole separate house or apartment that they're renting out as a investment property. Maybe they have many homes or apartments that they rent out. It just depends. As far as flexibility, I would say private landlords are a bit easier to negotiate with when it comes to price and things like that compared to large corporations. I do want to put out a disclaimer. If you are a teacher and you're coming on my program, do not negotiate with these people. Please, we work really hard to try to get you the best price possible and try really hard to have good relationships with the landlords that we work with, so please leave them alone. But everybody else, it is fair game. And they may work with you, they may not, but you can ask. And then, of course, the other option would be a large apartment complex. And typically, they are less flexible, but they come with more amenities, maybe trash service, a pool, a gym. It all depends. And the actual cost of what your rent will completely vary based on where you live, right? So a place in rural Montana is going to be a lot cheaper than even a studio apartment in New York City. All right, so let's talk about costs. And again, your monthly and your average rental cost is going to depend entirely on where you will be living, but there are some things that, I can almost guarantee that you'll have to pay for. So typically, when you apply for a place to live with an apartment complex or a landlord, the first thing they do is they check your credit score. And since you just moved to the US, you may not even know what credit is. You're in the right place. You don't have this, right? So a way that they circumvent that is they will charge you a higher deposit. So typically, anyone who is moving into that unit will have to pay some sort of deposit. But since you don't have a credit score, your deposit is most likely going to be a lot higher than somebody who has a good credit score. And typically, when you move out, you do get that deposit money back, assuming you left the apartment in good condition and the landlord doesn't need to use, or the apartment complex doesn't need to use any of your deposit money to fix whatever you damaged in the unit. Another thing you can almost count on that you're gonna have to pay is an application fee. So I have never worked in a very big city, so I'm assuming these prices will be a lot higher out there. But typically I've seen it range anywhere from $50 to $150. And most of the time private landlords do this, and so do apartment complexes. As far as private landlords, that's normally where the fees stop. Apartment complexes, they love to charge all sorts of things. They will normally tack on all sorts of fees when you move in. And I've even seen them charge $150 as a convenience fee. Convenience for what? I have no idea. None. But you want to make sure, are these fees that you're going to have to keep paying every month, or is it just something that you have to pay when you move in? So these are things that you should know before you sign the lease so that you can adequately prepare for it. So another very important thing to think about is utilities, because these are also going to be monthly costs that you have to pay in addition to your rent. So typically, if you're renting from a private landlord, you will either have to take out utilities in your name, and then that landlord is removed from it and you pay the city or whoever directly. Or sometimes maybe those utility bills will be in their name, and then they'll charge you a bill every month. If you live in an apartment complex, it might be a little more complicated or easy the way you look at it. Certain apartment complexes might include a water bill for you every month, so you don't have to take that out in your name. Some might have Wi-Fi, some might have trash, some might have nothing at all. So it's very important that you understand what is included, what will be added onto your rent, what you have to do before you move in, before you sign the lease. And typically in the US, utilities include water, gas, electric, Wi-Fi, possibly trash, depending on where you live. So let's talk about the length of your lease in the US. So typically this is going to be 12 months. And if you are renting from a private landlord or landlady, he or she might be more flexible with this. They might give you a shorter or longer lease. If you are renting from an apartment complex, they normally have more options than just 12 months, but typically the longer your lease is, the lower your monthly rent will be. And if you break your lease early, you might have to pay additional fees. You might not get your security deposit back. So these are all things that will be in your contract, and you need to understand these things before you sign your lease. I think sometimes people come to the US and they think, oh, I'm just gonna live here for 2 months and then peace out. Okay, that's fine, but you're gonna owe a lot of money. So you really need to read everything before you sign that lease. All right, last but certainly not least, this is most important, is definitely pay your rent on time. This is so important because if you do not do that, this will negatively affect your credit score. You might be required to pay extra fees. They might have extra interest. And you might be facing eviction. So nobody wants to do that at all. This is very important. Please, please, please pay your rent on time or pay it early. So that's it for today. If you enjoy preparing for life in the US, you're in the right place. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.